Hey everyone, Reflected here, and today I want to show you my new WinWing Orion metal rudder pedals with dampener. For Arctic Thunder, my new F-16 Viper campaign, I teamed up with WinWing, who were so kind as to send me a full F-16 kit so I can build and test the campaign as it was meant to be. So technically, it's a paid review, but as I said earlier in my ICP and throttle reviews, check them out if you haven't already, I'm not going to embellish anything. It's the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So, rudders. If you fly fly-by-wire jets, they may not seem all that important. The only time you really need them is taxiing around. If you're a Viper or Hornet jock, you may prefer buying an MFD or an ICP for your home cockpit before investing into rudder pedals, and that's alright. If, however, you're like me and you prefer analog jets like the Tomcat or the F5 or the upcoming Phantom, or if you fly World War II warbirds, you probably know that rudder pedals are just as important as a good joystick, if not more. Personally, I'd rather not have a throttle than not have rudder pedals. If you played Speed and Angels, you know that at high AOA, you roll the Tomcat using the rudder only, and you do not want to move the stick laterally. This will be even more true in the F4 Phantom, where moving the stick to one side at high AOA was known to make the jet roll the opposite way. I'm not going to go into the physics behind it, that'll be part of my upcoming MiG Killers training campaign, but if you want to be good in analog Cold War jets, you need exceptional rudder control. Warbirds? Every time you change anything, RPM, manifold pressure, or just the pitch attitude of the airplane, a propeller-driven plane will start skidding to one side or the other. You constantly need to step on the ball to keep it centered. Not to mention taxiing, taking off, or landing when your feet are literally dancing on the pedals to keep that tail dragger rolling straight. Now that we established how important pedals are, let's have a look at what I used before. For 15 years, I had a Logitech pedal. It's made of plastic, it's quite light, but it was big enough to give me sufficient precision. The centering mechanism was very crude and felt cheap, but I loved it. It got the job done and lasted for well over a decade. Then I had to move and leave it behind, so I got a Thrustmaster TFRP. It's really the cheapest option out there, great entry-level pedals, and it's a lot better than no pedals, but that's it. Not a lot of precision due to it being very small, the pedal movement is sticky, and the centering spring broke after half a year. This is when I got my WinWing. First impression? It's heavy metal. Literally. It feels like someone just removed the pedals from a P-47. And I mean it in a good way. It's very well built, high quality, and heavy duty. The pedals themselves are also metal and have a lot of resistance. When you step on the brakes, you feel like you're really stopping a 50,000-pound Tomcat. The centering is done by this spring here. It's quite strong, maybe a little too strong for my liking. It takes strength to push the pedals to the full extremities. What I love about it is that the center position is not as obvious as on other pedals I've tried. There's only a subtle click, no dead zone or wiggle room there, even though the spring reliably pulls them back to the center position. If you get the version with the dampeners, you get this extra thingy here. I had no idea what to expect because I never understood what it was. But now I do. Here's how I would put it. The more dampening you set, the more it feels like it has inertia. You feel like it's connected to an actual airplane behind you, and when you release pressure, it doesn't immediately spring back to the center position. You no longer feel you're only fighting a spring, but you have a feeling of a whole mechanism connected to it, if that makes sense. The dampening effect can be adjusted here to your liking. If you fly helos, you can very easily just remove the spring and your pedals will no longer recenter. You can still use the dampener though to give you more resistance. Okay, so you need a lot of force to move the pedals, but won't the whole base just twist if you apply that much pressure? That was my biggest problem with all my other pedals, and this is where criticism is due here as well, although for different reasons. They have these pieces of rubber pads at the end of each of these arms. They're not sticky, as in they don't have any glue on them, but they hold firm on the floor, at least on these ceramic tiles. Just make sure you clean the surface first and remove the protective nylon from the rubbers. Learn from my mistake. If you have a carpet or a different kind of floor, worry not. WinWing provides a mat in the box that you can put underneath your pedals. Pretty cool. So, what's my criticism? WinWing needs to find a better way to attach the rubber pads to the metal arms, because after a week of heavy use, the pads came off and I had to reattach them with super glue. So while friction between the pads and the floor is adequately strong, the attachment between the pads and the pedal isn't. It's an easy fix though. This thing here is spring loaded and you can mechanically lock your pedals, say if you want to transport them. These nuts here are supposed to adjust something, but I haven't figured out what. They don't seem to be connected to anything and the manual is not very clear about them. Let me know in the comments if you know what they're for. Flying with it for a while, I had another criticism. Because of how my desk is set up, the pedals are quite close to my chair, and I found that the pedals were standing too upright, and it was a bit uncomfortable having to flex my feet upwards all the time. Then my friend Sedlo pointed out another option for adjustment. The pedals have 3 holes to attach the arms that go into the hall sensor. By selecting a different hole, you can make them more upright or more laid down, whichever you find most comfortable. It's a very, very smart and user-friendly design. So all in all, I'm very impressed, and even though the throttle and ICP are really cool, this is probably my favorite piece of WinWing equipment so far. So simple, yet so sturdy and well built, and it gives you very precise control in game. Just for the sake of comparison, with my TF RPs I had to use a curve of over 20-25 in each module. But with these, I'm fine either with no curves at all or set it to, I don't know, 5 or 10 depending on the module. It gives me a level of precision I have never dreamed of before, which is a total game changer in the Tomcat and Warbirds, and believe me, you'll need it in the Phantom too. Alright, I hope you found this helpful. Let me know in the comments if you also have one or have any questions about it. See ya!